You remember the Brady Bunch? They may have solved their family problems in less than 30 minutes, but today's life is a little more complex, especially for the Boomer Bunch. This group not only grew up watching the Brady Bunch, but now has a whole new set of challenges navigating retirement and trying to decide whether they should hire a financial advisor to achieve their goals. Today, we're going to talk about the 9 different retirees who should hire a financial advisor, and you're going to find out whether you align with one of them. And not only that, you're going to understand what misconceptions each of these personas have. By the end of the video, I'm going to share 3 questions you should be asking your financial advisor or one you're considering hiring to see if they are the right fit for you. Now, today's video was prompted by a comment on the prequel to this video who should not hire a financial advisor. So thank you at Midlife Minimalist for suggesting this video, and know that as you comment on this and other videos, I read and reply to every single one. Let's dive in. The first member of our Boomer Bunch is an overwhelmed Olive. And you can't blame her. For nearly everyone, it's their first time retiring, and there's a lot to tackle. Not to mention, it's really hard to spend your entire life in an asset accumulation phase, building your net worth, and now going into an asset decumulation phase where you're drawing on those hard-earned savings to make your retirement lifestyle that which you've always dreamed of. A common misconception that an overwhelmed Olive has is, I have to figure everything out on my own, which simply isn't the case. Obviously, the basis of this video is to say there are advisors like myself who have helped hundreds or thousands of people encounter this transition into retirement and throughout retirement. So it's not their first rodeo. You don't have to do it alone. Next is our tax-troubled Tammy. She's overwhelmed with all the complexities that come with the tax changes and laws from time to time. Not to mention, from 2019 until now, the RMD rules have changed 3 times. Before the Secure Act, Secure Act 1.0, Secure Act 2.0, there's too many changes to keep track if you're not on a regular basis. Not to mention, there's lots of talk about Roth conversions. Is it right for me? And how do I do it without messing up? Just trying to know how to balance withdrawals from your different investment accounts most tax efficiently as possible can be a dizzying conundrum at best. So a common misconception with a tax-troubled Tammy is death and taxes, I can't avoid them, so might as well pay them. And that's simply not the case. There's plenty of different strategies depending on your individual situation that you can leverage in order to minimize your lifetime tax liability. The next retiree that can benefit from an advisor is a procrastinating Peter. Now, if this is you, you're probably already nodding, but this is the type of person that is only dealing with their finances when absolutely necessary. Probably because they've had a bad experience with finances in the past, or they've always lived in a household where money was scarce. And even though they may have assets today, it's just too painful to think through spending more money or how to not spend too much. A common misconception they have is I have plenty of time to plan, and today's just not the day I'm going to do it. And as we know, tomorrow really never comes, and if you fail to plan, you're planning to fail. The trouble a procrastinating Peter comes across is they unknowingly have compounding costs with their procrastination. This could apply to things such as not having the right asset allocation in their investments or not starting Social Security at the right time. This can lead to not only decisions made too late, but those that are made poorly and rushed. And believe me, retirement planning is something you don't want to rush. The next retiree is a busy Bob. Now, he's different than a procrastinating Peter. He's just somebody that's pulled in every direction. He's caught up either with family or work or other responsibilities and selflessly giving of his own time to put others' needs first. So he never really gets down to the nitty-gritty of taking care of himself. And the misconception that a busy Bob commonly has is, I'll get to my finances when I have more time, which of course never really comes around. This kind of person is plenty capable to take care of their own finances, but simply isn't getting to it and would greatly benefit from outsourcing and delegating their retirement plan and investment management to somebody who can focus on it full time. And Bob can check in for regular reviews and feedback and input without having the full burden of it on his shoulders alone. The next member of our Boomer Bunch is an anxious Ann. Now, there are plenty of things that can make you anxious in retirement, but a common one is worrying about whether you're going to run out of money. And so because of that, she's constantly anxious about, can I pay this bill or can I join my friend on this trip? If a tree falls in my house, if I have to have this surgery, am I going to be destitute? And as a result, she's overly cautious about her finances and lives in a constant state of worry. A misconception that she has is that putting her money in safe investments is the best way to not outlive her savings. Now, safe can mean different things to different people, but for an anxious Ann, that often means tucking your money all away in a savings account or a CD or other places where it's really not doing anything other than losing to inflation. Remember, retirees are trying to fight 2 battles as far as preserving their assets, and most commonly they're worried about stock market crashes, which are a real thing, and it's not a matter of if, but when they happen. The element that they often overlook is inflation, the silent tax that constantly eats away at their purchasing power. And putting money in safe investments, it's kind of like water. The tighter you hold onto it, the more runs out of your hand. and she's not sure about what levels of risk is appropriate to help her money last as long as possible. Next is a widowed Wendy. Now, this might sound pretty obvious from the start. Someone who is left on their own to manage the finances, perhaps for the first time in their marriage, is an overwhelming thing. They may be even emotionally vulnerable and skeptical of people who may be swooping in and trying to take advantage of her situation. And a misconception that she or he, as a widower, may have is, I'll lose control of my finances if I hire an advisor, which you need to do some vetting to make sure you're with the right one. Now, if you're not a widow or widower at this time, keep in mind that inevitably in every relationship, there's going to be a widow or a widower, including in my relationship. So many times retirees seek out having a financial advisor, not because they're widowed, but because they'd rather have a plan in place and someone to carry the torch for their surviving spouse because they're concerned about them managing it on their own. Many of my clients have that peace of mind knowing there's that continuity that I'm going to be around even where they're not. So the plan could continue to be in place and their spouse is taken care of that they've already approved of before they passed on. The next member of our boomer bunch who could benefit from an advisor is DIY Dan. And a fallacy that sometimes DIY Dans have is I couldn't help but think of Luke Skywalker in Return of the Jedi, Star Wars, saying,
Your overconfidence is your weakness.
which can apply to a lot of people, myself included. Now, don't get me wrong, many retirees out there are successful and can manage their own finances. But the misconception that many retirees have is that self-managing their finances and investments is not only cheaper, but just as effective as working with a professional. It's not true in all cases. For example, I've got my basement that's unfinished, and while I could do it from the framing to the drywall to the plumbing all the way up, I don't trust myself to do that, much less the electricity. I don't think my wife would let me handle that on my own. So while I could finish my own basement, I don't think it would be just as effective, but it would be cheaper. And remember, price is what you pay and value is what you get. So make sure as you're evaluating what a financial advisor you're going to work with or are working with, that you're getting more value than the cost you're paying for it. Even small details that a DIY Dan may overlook can greatly overshadow the cost of an advisor. For example, I've got one of my clients who every year donates over $100,000 as a QCD from his IRA. Now, if DIY Dan does that on his own and doesn't ensure the CPA marks that QCD as a donation rather than a taxable event as a withdrawal, he could be talking about a mistake costing him over $25,000 in just that year. So there's many things like that that are small, but a small mistake on a large amount of money is a large mistake. And a professional who does this day in and day out can help in areas that a DIY Dan may come across just once a year, perhaps. Next is Healthcare Harry. He is someone who's stressed over rising healthcare costs and long-term care costs. And a misconception of his is Medicare will cover all my healthcare needs and I'll be just fine. Today, I just came back from visiting a client who is 90 years old. His spouse is 89, and I went to visit them in their long-term care facility, and their bills, if I can block out their name that I went through with them together today, total over $19,000 a month. A month! So trying to make sure that you have a plan to not outlive your savings in light of rising healthcare costs that outpace inflation is a key thing that a healthcare Harry is worried about and could use a financial advisor to help chart a sustainable plan to withdraw his nest egg so he doesn't run out of money and become destitute at his most vulnerable point of his life. Finally is a generous George. And I have lots of generous George clients who simply are sometimes their own worst enemy. They're eager to help their own family members and loved ones, often overlooking their own financial security, willing to write a large check for Christmas on a consistent basis or helping grandchildren with down payments on homes. These things can quickly eat away at a retiree's financial stability without them even realizing it. A misconception of a generous George is I can give as much as I want without it affecting my retirement, which is simply not the case. Working with an advisor can have several benefits, such as finding more tax-efficient ways to gift, like through 529 college saving plans, leveraging non-retirement investment accounts to gift by way of a step-up in basis for their heirs instead. I even volunteer myself to be thrown under the bus by my clients so they can tell their children who are still waiting with an open hand, hey, my advisor has set these boundaries, and if I spend too much or gift too much, then it's at the cost of my retirement. And do you want me moving in with you? That type of conversation helps a retiree get some clarity around what is a sustainable amount that they can gift their loved ones and family members without it coming at their own retirement security cost. Now, I promised I'd share 3 questions that you should be asking your financial advisor or one you're considering working with to see if they're a fit for you. The questions are not just surface level, but ones I think really help you get a better feel for the advisor based on their answers. The first is, what is your approach to ensuring I don't outlive my money? This is going to give you an idea of what tactics they use, what products or investments that they might use in order to create a sustainable retirement withdrawal plan. Second is, what's overlooked by most retirees and how do you address it? This helps you get a feel for, do they work with other retirees that have gone through similar situations to you, and hear their feedback in response to how they address that situation. The third question is, what if something happens to you? The average age of a financial advisor these days is in their 50s, and you want to make sure that they're not retiring and leaving you hanging in the middle of your retirement or latter part of your most vulnerable years in retirement. So, making sure that they have a succession plan in place to have some continuity in your plan and investment philosophy is really key. Or, as a shameless plug for myself, find an advisor on the younger side who's got a long ways to go in their career, making sure that you're not going to be changing hands at a vulnerable time of your life. There's a reason you decided to watch today's video, much less make it this far. If you're interested in seeing whether our team can be a fit to help you with your goals, there's a link in the description below. You can schedule a call on my calendar today where we can have a brief discussion about what your goals are and if we're fit to help you with them. If not, no worries. If you'd like to continue to understand more about our team, feel free to subscribe to the channel where I'll add more retirement education. I also have a link in the description to my email newsletter. Every Saturday morning, I send out retirement education and insights, and people must seem to like it because over 70% of the people I send it to are reading it consistently, which I'm grateful for. I appreciate your time and thank you for watching today, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.